Oh, and now my slides aren't flipping. Sorry. All right, everybody can see that okay?
It looks like your shared screen has disappeared.
Mm, sorry.
No
Let's
worries.
start. Um, okay, we good now?
Yes, I can see it. If anyone else can't, let me know.
Okay. So welcome. Sorry we're off. Thanks for spending lunch with me. We're just gonna talk a little bit about case studies today. And I've put my email up here, so if you guys want to email me about any of the links I have in here, or you want the PowerPoint, that is totally fine. Let me just get my mouse. We're really going to talk about, case studies in a couple of different ways. Why should you use them? How you can use them, how to find them. So hopefully I've given you some resources in here, and then how to write them, because that can be a really good option for you if you need some publications. I'll give you a little background first. Man, my slides are not wanting to flip here. Here. No troubles. There we go. So I had been teaching after my PhD, but I got my first full-time faculty position kind of in early 2000s. I was teaching at a really small institution. It was sort of their first courses in science. They had zero resources. And colleagues I've spelt wrong, but I was the only science person, and I had a very, very small budget. They thought they could start up a science program with $1,000. Yay. That's where I started. I was in panic mode. I had been teaching anatomy physiology, so I was pretty confident with that. But suddenly I was teaching all of these brand new biology courses and genetics and ecology, and I had no budget. And then I met this wonderful woman from University of South Carolina named Bonnie Wood. She had come to U of C to give a lecture, and her lecture was on lecture-free teaching. And she was one of the first ones to do a flipped classroom. And she took me to the side, got me many, many cups of tea, and showed me some case study resources and showed me how to use case studies, because they are a really cheap way to give students a good, valuable learning experience. I incorporated these into my labs and into my tutorials. And then in around 2009, I moved up to the U of C. I had stayed with U of C for my research, but now I was doing more teaching at U of C. And of course, I had more budget and I had more equipment, but I did not have more time to develop some of that stuff. And I'm kind of lazy. I had things that were working with the classes that I had developed. The student feedback was really, really positive. I just kept the case studies in my courses, even though there were options for more expensive labs and more expensive tutorials. Um, I kind of stayed working at the two schools for a couple of years. And then in 2017, I did a study comparing the two classes. I had classes of 300, I had classes of 30 at the small institution. And I was teaching the same way. I was using the same PowerPoints because I'm lazy, similar labs because I'm lazy. And I really kind of thought the small classes would make a difference. I thought that I made a difference. And it was humbling to know that I did not. Class size didn't matter. The student outcomes, when I looked at exam results, lab results, final exams, nothing made a difference. So within this study, I had done a survey, and really it came back to teaching methodologies. That's what the students recognized. They said that had a much greater impact than things like class size. And one of the big things that came out was inquiry-based learning and case studies. So some of the comments I got from students, I like all of the case studies in labs and tutorial diagnosing patients, help me learn the concepts. Case studies helped us to apply the knowledge. Case studies were the best. We weren't just learning the information, we were applying it. It helped me remember. I thought all case studies were really interesting and related to what we were doing. Applying what we learned in class to people in case studies and diagnosing patients really made me understand the information. And case studies helped me self-assess my own knowledge. So the feedback I was getting from the students was these case studies were really contributing to their knowledge base. I kind of thought it was cheap and easy, but for them, it was a really valuable experience. And in a lot of cases, they learned more from the case studies than they learned from the procedural labs, because a lot of the labs they were doing with 2 or 3 partners, they weren't really involved the same way. So they identified the case studies as actually being a better experience than the labs. So why should we use them? They are no cost, and they give the students a great experience. And the student response, and it has continued this way. So I'm still using the case studies, and every year the response is still the same. It's very positive. They are really easy to use. They're easy to modify for your specific needs in your class. And a lot of them are ready-made for you. So if you don't have time, if you're in that panic mode, this can be a really great option. The other thing that kind of bothers me is I have students that like to leave the lab early. You know, whoop, we finished it all and they're out of there in an hour. And making them do case studies just extends that lab time a little bit. So I like that. The other thing is I can use them in an in-person class. I can use them in labs. I can use them in lectures, tutorials, but they also work really well online. And I can set up discussion groups online, or they can just do them individually online, but they still get that good solid experience. And overall, they can be very inclusive. I do some labs where my students have to run the stairs for exercise, and then we measure things like ECGs and blood pressure and spirometry. But some of my students that have injuries or other issues can't do that type of thing. But we can do a case study that can give them, an experience. So we can make it inclusive. That being said, I'll show you a case study site that is my favorite. But a lot of those in that case study group are not always inclusive in terms of names and things like that. Some of the case studies are all like Bob and Sally, and so what I do is I change the names now. And the feedback I got from the students to say, having Patel in there instead of Bob actually made a difference. So little tiny things you can do to make it more inclusive, and it's very easy when you can modify these guys. Okay. You're probably all seen Bloom's taxonomy on thinking skills before. When we just do rote memory, that's kind of the lowest level of learning. Then we try and get them to understand concepts. But once you get up into the upper levels where you're applying and you're analyzing and you're evaluating, that's really where they start to, mesh all of their knowledge base. And case studies fit into the upper levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So they give you those application, those analyzing skills, the evaluating skills. I also now have students create their own case studies, sometimes as part of assignments and sometimes just part of a tutorial experiment. But when they're writing their own case studies, I always check them just to make sure they've got them right. But creating them has really helped them learn that knowledge. So case studies can really get these application skills developed, the critical thinking skills. So how to use them? You can certainly use them in lectures. You can use them for whole class discussions. I tend to do more small groups because they interact. The problem with small groups is you still have to kind of summarize afterwards. So if I'm really tight for time, it tends to be a whole class discussion. If I have time to spare, then we can do small groups and summarize afterwards. For the online classes, individual case instruction works super well. And I do a lot of mini cases, speed dating. So I can throw this out in the middle of a lecture. I can give them, a couple of lines of a mini case just as a checkpoint to see whether they're understanding a concept. But these also work really well in labs and tutorials. And you can do a mixed method, right? You can use them in several different ways. So certainly the lecture method, you can incorporate storylines and data into your lecture and weave it. These can be a teaser. I often give out a diagnostic case at the beginning of a class, and then we work through the course material, and then they diagnose right at the end to see whether they've figured out what's wrong with that patient. We know that stories are really effective in lectures. And these can be woven throughout a lecture, and more information given as you go along. I've also done it over a whole term. I've got a guy that we just call the sickest guy on the planet. And every time we introduce a new, body system, he comes back and we talk about his problems and we diagnose them as we go along. This method doesn't include class discussion, so it can be very quick. You don't break up into small groups, and I don't take interaction with a lot of these until the end. So if I've given a diagnostic teaser at the beginning, then at the end we kind of discuss, or everybody will use like Mentimeter to send in their diagnosis, stuff like that. Whole class directed. Usually the instructor will present the case and then we have question and answer. If it's a whole class, a big class, we can use clickers or something like Top Hat or Mentimeter. This tends to be less engaging than the small groups, but it also tends to take up less time. The small groups, 3 to 5, they read the case. They talk with each other, and then we do a big, large group review. These take up a little more time. So these work better in my labs and tutorials, and I find that the TAs are more and more comfortable running them, so they work well. Okay. I also do individual cases for assignments for the online students, and sometimes I will present a video post case. So they online, they still get the discussion. So they work through, one of them I do is breast cancer, and they have to figure out the risk factors. So I give them a paragraph on each patient. They figure out what the risk factors are, and then I will discuss it post case. They lose the advantage of talking to other partners, but that's just one of the things you deal with online classes anyhow. I do put them into discussion groups. Sometimes I'll have breakout rooms and things like that. So, and then anytime we kind of mix those methods, we'll do individual and then discussions in lectures and labs. The reason I do this, I don't know if any of you guys were at the talk at McEwen yesterday with Melissa. But inclusivity, if you have students that have trouble reading a lot, then sending them home with the case first and they can read it at their own speed, and then coming back and having the discussions in lectures and labs work better for those students. So if it's a long case, I tend to do that. If it's a shorter, easy read, then we can do it on the spot. So it really depends on the length of the length of the cases. These are just some examples of my little mini speed dating. So if I'm in a lecture, I'll throw up, so this would be ECGs, I would throw up the ECG, give them little 2 lines of a patient, and then they kind of throw out ideas of what they think the patient might be. There's 2 of them on here right now, so that's how short they are. These guys work really well in the labs and the tutorials. I get my TAs to slap mini cases around the room, and before the students are allowed to leave, they've got to run around and try and diagnose all the patients as quickly as they can. So they're short, they're sweet, but they get the case across really, really well. Okay. And then when we look at case presentation types, some of them you present the whole case all at once. So, the whole reading case, all the data is presented, and then you can do discussions, debates, you can answer questions. In general, for me, the shorter cases are much more effective than the long ones. So if I've got a really long case, I'm going to break it up over several classes anyhow. So that's more of an interrupted case. I don't like the ones that are like, here, read these 8 pages, and then let's have a debate about it. So in general, mine aren't usually more than 2 pages of reading, and some of them are even shorter than that. The interrupted cases I really, really like. Certainly for anatomy and physiology, they work much, much better. So we present in sections. They get some data, they answer a few questions, they have discussion. We summarize that, we go on to the next section. And some of them will have 4 or 5 sections to them. We can do it over several classes, or we can do it over an entire term. Usually when it's a diagnostic study, which are the ones that I tend to gravitate to, they're pretty short and we do it all in one class. And often, I find if I do one case and it takes more than half an hour, 40 minutes, I start to lose students. So the interrupted keeps them engaged, brings them back with the discussion. But still, again, half hour, 45 minutes would be the maximum I would want to do these. A lot of them are 15 minutes. And we've developed a lot of PowerPoints. I've gotten my TAs to develop PowerPoints for the presentations. So that also helps keep them engaged. So an open case may not have the right answer. These are the more of the debate types. We get a lot of those. I've used a lot of them in ecology when I used to teach that. And bioethics. I still teach some bioethics. So these don't necessarily, everybody's going to be on a different side. So those ones can be good. You got to watch the discussion a little bit. I've had some get a little wild. But usually these work out well as well and get some thinking. The clicker cases, again, these guys tend to work for the larger classes. I'll show you the site that I use the most, and they have some that are already clicker cases, but it's very easy to modify anything into a clicker case in a PowerPoint. So you've got that option as well. We do a lot of jigsaw cases where they have to solve a medical mystery. So I'll give you an example of one of those. So medical case, they've got 3 patients. The patient one has died. Patient 2 got an organ transplant from patient 1. They got sick. So we have to figure out why they got sick. We have to figure out why patient 1 died. And then patient 3 got an organ from patient 1, but they are not sick. So we have to figure out why that patient is not sick. So we've got 4 medical transcripts for each patient. They can do medical history, they can do organ assessment, they can do interviews, they can do vitals. But each group is so there's 12 pieces of information altogether. Each group can only buy 6 of those. So they're only allowed half of the information. They're not allowed to share amongst the groups, but they have to try and solve the mystery. So it's all about buying the right information. They often buy 1 or 2, they take a look, and then they buy another 1 or another 2 until they get there, and hopefully they get the diagnosis. This is one of the students' favorite. They love these types of case studies. This one can take an hour, but they stay engaged the whole time. And we've developed a whole lot of these medical cases now, just because they have been so successful. So yeah, so that's what we use a lot. Here's just an example of what they get. So we've written them up. They've got patient assessment, patient vital signs. So this is what they would get as one of those pieces of information within that case study. But it works out really well. And then I've got a PowerPoint at the end where we summarize and I show them the clues that would have gotten them to the right answers. So that one is highly successful. I don't do a lot of debates in mine. We're now developing some video case studies. We got a little bit of money to develop video case studies. So I've asked students to give us firsthand accounts of conditions that they have. And they've recorded themselves for like 3 to 5 minutes. And these have been really, really powerful in class. Somebody got her grandma to give us one on COPD, and she's on oxygen and everything, but this video is amazing. And the students are like, wow, I had no idea. We've got a couple on celiac, and they're like, I had no idea the pain was that bad, just from a little bit of gluten. So we're doing a lot of these video cases now. And we're actually using some actors now, or my non-paid children, to be patients. So because I'm teaching anatomy physiology within the nursing faculty now, we've got them pretending to be patients talking to the nurses. So we're doing a lot of video cases now. Some can be incorporated into demonstrations within a lab. Some of the bioethics can be kind of dilemmas. I've got some that I've developed from journal articles now, and I'm kind of morphing from journal articles into things. I've used some TED Talks before, and now I'm using a lot of podcasts. I send them home, they listen to the podcast, and then they come back and they get a case based on that podcast. And it might have been a podcast on a condition, on a bacterial infection or something like that for microbiology, or it might be something else like bioethics. But I'm kind of using things like podcasts in here as well. We can incorporate lab demos in here. And now we're doing, like I said, student presentations. So in some cases, I give them the cases. They go off, they get their presentations, and they come back and they present their case to the group, and everybody has a different case. And now we're getting into them writing their own cases. I check them to make sure they're okay, and then they present them to the class and have the class figure out those diagnoses. So those again have been really, really effective. And it's hardly any work for me because I just have to pick out the conditions and the students do all the work and the students do all the teaching. So these have been really great. Like I said, we're getting into role play. There are some available that are games, and then we do a lot with patient diagnosis now. That's just the students' favorite thing. They like to play doctors. So, and I've pulled these into. We did biochemistry last term. I think I have one coming up that shows you. But there's some that are really strong in biochemistry, some that are really strong in microbiology. So I'll show you those as well. Okay, so how to find them. This, you guys, is my all-time favorite place. I hope everybody has been to the National Center for Case Study Teaching in Science. It was set up under the University of Buffalo, under Dr. Harriet. He was the one that first started developing these cases. And it's now been taken under the NSTA, the National Science Teachers Association. The access to all the cases are free. But the access to the teaching notes and the answer keys is $30 a year US, which is really reasonable. There are now thousands of case studies on this site, and they are all specific to science, and you can do filters. So I've given you the link there. When you go in, oh, I thought that was my next slide. So you can choose filters. So general biology, microbiology, ecology, physiology, medicine, genetics, you name it. You can pick your filters, and you can pick multiple filters, and you can pick student level. So some of them are aimed at high school. Some of these are aimed at upper undergraduate. Some of them are lower undergraduate. Some of them are graduate. Depending on the length and the level. And a lot of these have different levels. So you can have the same case study with a chemistry slant or a biochemistry slant or a biology slant. So you can choose that as well. You can pick the topic. You can filter according to type. Do you want an interrupted case study? Do you want a clicker case? Do you want one with a PowerPoint? Stuff like that. So all of those are available. They come with full teaching notes, which is really, really helpful when you're working with TAs. And they come with all the answer keys. So again, that is helpful, especially when you're working with TAs. A lot of them now have other resources. You can get PowerPoints, you can get video clips, things like that. And the other good thing that the Case Study site has is a listserv. So you can get emails, you can go in, you can put in your filters, and whenever you get a new case that matches your filters, matches your profile, then they will send you an email and say, hey, check out this case study. So you don't have to keep going back and looking for new ones. They will let you know when there might be one out there that you're looking for. So when you go in, this is what it looks like. So it's the NSTA site. You have a chance to subscribe and pay. You can get onto their listserv for the case studies. There are guidelines here. It also lets you submit a case study. So this is a great way. These are all peer reviewed, so you know that they are correct. The knowledge is good. And it counts as a peer-reviewed article publication. So, and they are very, very easy to write. So, this is a great way to get a publication if you need it for promotion or anything like that. There's a whole lot of resources on here and publications, and these will help you write the case study. It'll help you use the case study. So they've got some really good, valuable information on the case study. I don't know if I want to leave my, maybe I will just take you to the site. Let me show you a different screen. So I'll actually go to the case study. Hopefully you guys can see that. So when you first come in, you can just go to Browse Case Studies. So like I said, they like you to have the $30 subscription, but you don't have to look at the case studies. So you have the filters on the side, all of the subjects. So these guys are good for a whole lot of science, no matter what you're teaching. It should be in there. And then they always come up with sort of the most recent case studies. And you can just, whoops, sorry, you can just click on a case study. And they'll give you a quick synopsis, a pretty picture. They'll give you the abstract, and you can download the cases, and you don't have to pay for that. You can look at all the case studies for free. There's an overview with the objectives, the keywords, so you can see what kind of format it's in. This one is a PowerPoint. It's for undergraduate, upper level. You can see the keywords there, and you can see what the links might have been, what the filters might have been for this one. And then you can go to teaching notes and answer key. And then just download those if you have your subscription. I think I'm logged in. No, I'm not logged in right now, so it's not allowing me, but it will come up and ask for your $30. But the other thing it gives you is the answer keys. So, and then any other extras like media, PowerPoints is there, and videos are going to come up as well. So it is really easy to use. It's really easy to find. And, whoops, sorry. And it's very easy to just do a quick search. So if I'm in here and, whoops, no, that's going to take me to NSTA. Where's my search button? So I can go like cancer, right? And then you can see how many will come up for each topic. So you can put it in by topic. You can put it in by, biology, or you can just put it in for specific topics and get a list of those case studies. So it is really, really, it's really easy to use. So I love it. This is the place that saved my life many, many years ago. Okay, back to it. So again, this is just taking to one of the screens that I just showed you, right? You can download the case. You've got that overview, so you know what topics it covers, what the keywords are, and what level it's towards. You've got the teaching notes. You've got the media here. You can see I've got some videos here on Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, as well as a PowerPoint just based on joint instability. So there's lots available. This is an example of one of the ones they have that already comes as a PowerPoint. It's a clicker case. So there's just lots of options for the mode that you want to deliver them in. Okay. This is another, I don't know if you guys have been to Cubes Hub yet. Hopefully some of you guys have. It is a chaotic site because it's all open access, but it is all instructor information. It's all bio information, and it's all free to use and free to modify because it's open access. I don't know if any of you guys went to the UGen conference that they did 2 weeks ago. This is the Undergraduate Genetics Education Network. They also have their own cases. They have a lot of cures for the lab. But they do free, online day-long seminars. And the one we did 2 weeks ago was on sex and gender and genetics. And it was really great. They had some case studies in there that related to, how we're determining sex versus gender in sports, which was interesting because the Olympics are coming up, and so they are in here. But I've given you one specifically that is for a couple of years of workshops. So they were running case workshops where you were developing case studies and using them, but they've put all the resources up there, including the sample case studies in there. So if you go to the HITS link, but go to this one as well because there's just, oh, you guys, I can't tell you how much information is on cubes. You just have to prowl around. My problem is I get lost for 2 hours because I get sidetracked. Easily distracted people. But this is another really great site to find resources for everything, including cases. So go and look at that one. Okay. And I'm assuming most of you guys have been to BioInteractive as well. These guys have a whole lot of case studies on here. And again, the materials that come with it, you get a full folder, you get the educator materials, you get the student handouts, you get the slide decks, you get transcripts, you get videos with their case studies. And I love BioInteractive because again, you can go down a rabbit hole for 3 hours if you don't want to do your work because they have so many resources for stuff. They've got I don't know, one of my favorites is using the different animal blood flow patterns, right? Showing all the different hearts and stuff like that. But they are all interactive. They all have video links and stuff like that. So BioInteractive is another one. It's awesome for everything, but it has some really good case studies as well. So I like to use that one. University of Delaware is another one. They have a site for problem-based learning. Again, they have the filters, so you can pick your discipline, the length of the case study, the level you want it to be, the type you want it to be, and you can go in there and look at their problem-based learning and look at their case studies. So it tends to be more general, but there are some really good science ones on here as well. So again, another rabbit hole. Okay. There's a really good site for Indigenous content now developed in the US. It's developed, I think it was Seattle. Um, but it's called Evergreen Native Cases. And there's a lot of case studies on here. There's a lot of teaching resources. There's a lot of writing resources. So I've just given you a couple of examples here on the side: pesticides on the prairie, dead eagles, buffalo, impact of, and this was specific to one of the reserves they had in the US. Looking at Indigenous knowledge. So I know we're all being asked to put more and more Indigenous content into our classes. So this was one site that I found really interesting, and I was able to find an Indigenous medicine case study here that works out really well for my class as well. So this one is worth looking at. Again, this is another one that is happy to take submissions if you have something that would be appropriate, and they give you all the instructions to submit as well. Microbiology, this is another good one. This is actually a game where you can play different outbreak levels. So this is from the CDC in the US, but they have several case studies and several pathogens you can play with. So that might be one if you teach microbiology. And then there's a whole lot at evo.ed or dash ed for evolution cases. So Mendel's peas, E. coli evolution, skin pigmentation, mouse coloration, breast cancer, opioid addiction, lactose persistence. These are really, really interesting, and they can apply to a whole lot of different courses. So clam toxin resistance, I probably wouldn't use in anatomy and physiology, but I would use breast cancer. I would look at opioid addiction. I would look at lactose persistence. So there's something a little bit for everybody in these case studies as well. So, and just a few more for ecology. If you're looking for ecology case studies, these are from the American Natural History collection as well. So those ones are good. And then this is a molecular cell simulation here from CASIT project. You can try this one as well, and it looks at thingamagoo trays. You know what I'm talking about. Word is gone for me. But you did ELISA studies. So Those are some of the resources. Why should you write them? It really allows you to specialize your cases for your learning objectives for your class. I find that there are so many out there now. I don't have to fully write them, but I do modify a lot of them to fit my class. And again, submitting to the NSTA site, that national case study site, because it includes peer review, it counts as a publication. So if you're needing help with promotion, if you're up for advancement, if you're up for renewal, this can give you a really quick, easy publication, and it puts it out there for other people to use. I really am a strong believer in let's share all the stuff. We're all doing the same thing. Share your resources. Because it's just going to make, if what we're getting from other people is going to make our stuff better, and we can share with the world. World peace, all of that stuff. So, how to write them? I usually pick the topic first. I check the research and then I develop the data set. So for me, it's often patient data, but it can be other research data as well. I can make it into a big collection. Sometimes I do spreadsheets with, 40 patients on it. Or sometimes it's just an individual patient with blood work and urine work and interviews. But after I've kind of developed that, then I write up the questions, the discussion points I want to get across, and the last thing I write is the story. So I add in all the fluff. And the students really pay attention to. They love it when you give them weird names or weird things. They like the more creative the narrative, the better. And when I get them to write their case studies, man, I wish I had recorded some of them because they have come in costume. They've come in like dying, crawling up the aisle of the lecture hall because they're dying and we have to figure out why. Like, the narrative really, really makes it. So, I've got some resources for you here that can help you with the writing. There's also some on the National Case Study site. So, one thing I like is get to the point, right? 1 to 3 pages work maximum. If I'm looking at a single class, I don't want to go longer than that. A few of my interrupted cases are a little longer, but usually not. The jigsaw cases might have a lot of parts to them, but the actual story can be told really, really quickly. If I can't get the whole point of the case study across in a couple of PowerPoint slides, it's probably too complex for what I want. So, I get to the point is big. I do create scenarios that the students can debate about because I want them to have discussion. It works well for the open cases. So some of this is debate like the bioethics or something like that. But a lot of it is, no, I think this patient has this disease. No, I think this patient has this disease. So I try and leave enough loose ends as we're working through the case that they don't know all the answers. They don't come up with the correct answer right away. They get part of the information and then they'll get more, maybe they'll get, the patient interview first, then they get the blood work, then they get the urine work, things like that. It has to be a pretty realistic narrative, right? We can create really interesting characters, but it still has to be a realistic case. And it has to be relevant to the students. So with patients and stuff like that, but if it is something like a historic case, then I try and relate it to the present. So, and some of these I've been able to incorporate my Indigenous content into. So this past term, I taught microbiology and we were able to do the smallpox outbreak at Haida has a case study, but then relate it forward and talk about, present concerns with pathogen spreads and the reemergence possibly of smallpox, things like that. So just some pointers. Here are some resources for you. And like I said, it's also on the case study site. These are some others, case studies in higher education, how to use them, how to teach with them. Here's the book from my friend Bonnie Wood, who saved me and kept me sane, and I'm still teaching today because of her. And then writing case studies, there's a whole lot here that you can use as resources. And again, it's on that national case study site. If you want to get a student guide for writing case studies, there are some. This is specific to ethics, but you can give them a condensed down sheet. reviewing case studies as well. And then I just have references. So I think I'm done, people. I will stop sharing. Sorry, I talked a long time, but I'm happy to take any questions or open it up. If you guys have any resources that you use regularly, please, please, please let me know because I love to steal stuff for free. So, yeah, if you guys have any input or anything like that.
I just want to say very quickly, we do have a feedback form that if you guys would be so kind as to fill out once you have left the chat, that would be greatly appreciated. I will also be emailing it out.
Oh, and Casey, you were awesome. You were putting all the links in there. Perfect,
As
perfect.
many as I could catch. I did miss some, so
Yeah, and please, but thank you for coming and hopefully you were encouraged to try a few.
Carol, I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry, am I echoing for you or just for me? You're okay? You can hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, are you grading their participation or is this just like formative learning? Sorry.
You know what? That depends on the course. So I'm teaching a senior course, Physiology of Aging, right now. So they're doing case studies that are just for completion marks. So I go
Okay,
through them, and as long as they're not way off, they get a percent. So they're doing 5 through the term. They're a little bit longer. So that's a free 5%.
great.
Some of them they are doing as part of the lab, but then it's getting assessed as an assignment. So their lab assignment or their lab report will include a case study. So I do some of them that way. Some of them will show up on an exam. They get a really quick diagnostic, but I promise them, like, if you've done the 10 mini case studies, one of those
Right.
case studies will be on the exam. And then, other times they write their own case study and present it, or they present it as an assignment. So there's a lot of different ways to use them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great that it's so flexible. And with the ones where they kind of get the mark, what would happen if they can't show up? Like they're not in class the day at that point, or they're doing it on their
Oh,
own time, so
like
that
for the
doesn't matter.
completion marks, you mean?
Yeah.
Those ones I put up, I post onto the D2L site.
Okay.
So those one they can do from home. And I mean, I am someone who hates group work. I hate it. I want to work on my own. So I never make them for those. I never make them have to be in a group to do them.
Okay.
They can do them individually or as a group. The ones that are within the lab, they do within their lab group. But like I said, sometimes they'll show up on an assignment or on the exam. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just want to say thank you because some of the resources I remember from COVID, where we kind of all had to spun a bunch of stuff, pivoting really easy, like, but then completely forgot about those. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
Case-It and the case study website, like I remember you showed them, it's like, I remember I used them and then I completely forgot them once we kind
Yeah.
of came back. Um,
Yeah.
Not
And
normal, but
and they work
yeah.
really well as filler too. Like
Yeah.
it's, here, do this in the corner while you're waiting for this machine to be available in the lab or something like that. So
Yeah.
we've just, yeah, I'm using them more and more now. Maybe I'm just
Yeah.
getting lazier and lazier. I don't know. Maybe I'm
No, but
just
I
like,
mean,
I'm done.
it's
But
interactive and that works. And it
yeah,
made me think I really love the idea of the students having to like buy clues.
yeah,
We're developing some type of board game, which is actually a case study for ecological like food web
yeah,
principle, where we give them some information and they need to map the impact on the food web after this invasive species comes in and disrupt everything. So then they need to
yeah,
follow what goes up, what goes down all across the web. And we were probably going to give them information a bit at large, but I
Yeah.
really love the idea of him having to like not gamble, but like
Well,
figure out
and the
what they buy
way,
or not as clue. That's really cool.
yeah, and the way we worded that was you won a research grant. So I said you got a research grant for $1,200, not more than that, and each piece of information costs $200. So
Yeah.
yeah, we kind of worked it around and made a scenario even around the you're only allowed 6 pieces of information.
That's a really good idea because you'd be limited by either money or time or whatever. You wouldn't be getting necessarily like a million years to study
Yeah.
the specific thing. So that's a really good idea. I'm gonna steal that. Thank you.
Steal away. That's what
Yes.
we're here for. Yeah. Any other comments? Any other ideas? We're good.
I think someone did mention, like, I caught a lot of the links, but if you have a sheet of the links or something you can share with me, and then I can send that out to
Oh,
everyone, that would
oh
be
yeah, for
greatly
sure.
appreciated.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
and I
I
think
guess,
we have a spot where we've posted the OER anyhow, right? So we could even post some of the case study links there.
okay, that'd be
Yeah.
good.
Okay, but yes, I will send it to you. Maybe not right away.
No
Um,
worries.
but
Once you get the recording and everything, if you send that to me, I'll email that all out. So,
okay, perfect. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Carol. Have a great day.
You too.